Hello everyone and welcome to another video. RollerCoaster Tycoon 1 and 2 are usually quite relaxing games where you take the time to build up your park. The most common deadline for a scenario is the end of year 3, which is nearly 3 hours of playtime, and you can keep playing after that. But what if we don't want to take a long time? What if we take it up a notch? What is the fastest you can complete a scenario in RollerCoaster Tycoon 1 or 2? Deadlines are always at the end of a year, so the shortest possible scenario is 1 year long. An example of this is the very first scenario in RollerCoaster Tycoon 1, Forest Frontiers. As long as you get the required 250 guests and 600 park rating, you will always beat this scenario after 1 year, which is exactly 54 minutes and 36.8 seconds long. This doesn't make for a very interesting speedrun, as every successful run would have the exact same time. To solve this issue, the community has decided that for speedruns the scenario counts as completed as soon as you meet all the requirements. For example, in this speedrun of Amity Airfield I got to the required 3000 guests in September year 1, so even though you have over 3.5 hours, my final time was just under 47 minutes. If you can get to 3000 guests in less than an hour, you must be able to get to 250 of Forest Frontiers really quickly. And you indeed can. The current fastest time belongs to a speedrunner by the name of ZG's. To get guests as quickly as possible, you need to max out both the natural guest generation and the guest generation from advertisements. To do that, ZG's runs all ads as quickly as possible and then builds rides and hires entertainers to make sure that the natural guest generation is also as high as possible. The rides are for the soft guest cap, as guests spawn much slower if you have more guests than all your rides combined attract to the park. And the entertainers are to increase the happiness of the guests, which increases the park rating, which in turn increases the guest generation. Lastly, he places a no entry sign to prevent any guests from leaving the park. This will eventually kill your park rating, but by the time you reach 250 guests, you don't have enough lost guests for that to be a problem yet. With this setup, ZG's reaches 250 guests and 600 park rating after 3 minutes and 26 seconds, which is the fastest anyone has ever beaten a scenario with a guest goal. But what about goals that require other things? Getting guests is quite a slow process and cannot really be done any faster than ZG's did in Forest Frontiers, but the same is not true for park value. After the asteroid from RollerCoaster Tycoon 2's Time Twister expansion is one of the many scenarios with a park value goal, and you need a value of 100,000 euros to beat it. Your park value is mostly based on the stats of your ride, so you can accumulate a very high park value very quickly by just building a lot of rides. And this is exactly what ZG's did in this scenario. He calculated that 17 motion simulators would provide the necessary 100,000 value, so he went to work. Less than a minute later, after just 51 seconds, he has built and opened all of them, and the scenario has been beaten. You can go faster though, for which we'll have to go back to RollerCoaster Tycoon 1. Diamond Heights has a goal of 20,000 park value, and you already start with a park that provides over 13,000, so you only need 7,000 more. Keep in mind that in RollerCoaster Tycoon 1 the park value is about 10 times lower than in RollerCoaster Tycoon 2, so this 20,000 park value would roughly be equivalent to 200,000 in RCT2. The record for Diamond Heights also belongs to ZG's and was set just a few days ago. He starts off by building 4 shuttle loops. Using pre-built coaster designs is allowed, but only if they come with the game. You cannot use any custom designs that you saved before the run started. He puts them all in test mode and then closes all the rides only to put the shuttle loops in test mode again. Why? Rides give park value as soon as their stats are calculated, but ride stats don't get calculated instantly. The function that calculates them continuously goes through all the rides that are opened or in test mode and updates their stats. This is why it sometimes takes a very long time for the stats of a ride to be calculated if you build it in a very large park. By closing all the other rides, ZG's allows this function to skip those and get to the shuttle loops quicker. This strategy allows for the park value to update to over 20,000 in just 33 seconds, which was the fastest anyone had ever beaten a scenario in RollerCoaster Tycoon 1 when I first wrote this script. However, just after setting his new Diamond Heights record, ZG set an even faster time on Dinky Park. It's very similar, it also has a park value goal, this time being 10,000, and the strategy is the same as well, except now he uses swinging ships instead of shuttle loops. The time ends up being slightly faster with 31 seconds, which for now is the fastest anyone has ever beaten a scenario in RollerCoaster Tycoon 1. Except once again it's not, as halfway through editing this video on Tuesday evening I got a message that Diamond Heights has been beaten again. Runner Father Time Jr., who has held the Diamond Heights record before and came up with the right closing strategy, got it back with a fantastic 27.4 seconds, which is now the fastest time in RCT1. Well, that is without using OpenRCT2. So far we've only been looking at so-called vanilla speedruns, where you play the original games without any add-ons or mods. The thing is, nowadays a lot of people use the very popular mod called OpenRCT2, which provides hundreds of new features and quality of life improvements. It's made for RollerCoaster Tycoon 2, but you can link your RCT1 installation to it, so you can play every scenario from RCT1 and 2 using OpenRCT2. As I said, it has hundreds of useful features, of which quite a few help in speedrunning, but there are two that are by far the most impactful. The first is early scenario completion, which makes it so that the game checks if you've completed the goal at the start of every day, instead of just at the deadline. With this turned on, we no longer need to check manually whether we've reached the goal prematurely, as the game does that for us now. So in the OpenRCT2 category, a scenario counts as beaten when the game says it's beaten. The other and even more important aspect is fast forwarding. You can speed up the game to up to 128 times the original speed, which allows for crazy fast times. There is a total of 146 scenarios in RollerCoaster Tycoon 1 and 2 combined, and OpenRCT2 allowed me to beat them all in under 10 hours, which is less than 4 minutes per scenario. Earlier I showed my world record for Amity Airfield in Vanilla, which was just under 47 minutes. How fast do you think the world record in the OpenRCT2 or fast forward category is? Less than 2 minutes. Speedrunner Hey There I'm Dead very quickly builds a custom vertical drop coaster with a very long queue line, which he then saves in order to build 9 more, before building some stalls as well. After that he fast forwards, hires some staff and spends the rest of the time advertising. After just 1 minute and 59 seconds he has gotten the 3000 guests he needs to beat Amity Airfield. His park is by no means optimal and quite a few guests will leave the park, but it is still faster to do it this way, as you can start speeding up the game much sooner. That's what OpenRCT2 speedruns are all about, balancing building optimal parks and building as quickly as possible so that you can start the speed up as soon as possible. There is actually a faster time on Amity Airfield of just 1 minute and 39 seconds. This abuses a bug only present in OpenRCT2, where the guests will infinitely stack in a queue line if you build 2 entrance buildings of the same height directly above each other. This is allowed, so it's a valid world record, but the 1 minute 59 second time shows off how OpenRCT2 strategies work a little bit better. If you can get 3000 guests in less than 2 minutes, how fast can you get Forest Frontier's measly 250 guests? Well, just watch this run by Brazilian runner Sparky L. That's right, the world record for Forest Frontiers is just 8.73 seconds. They start off by building the chocolate log pre-build of the junior coaster, which conveniently already includes a queue line and some path. Then they speed up and start advertising, which gets them to the required 250 guests in just a few seconds. This setup doesn't work anymore in recent versions of OpenRCT2, as you now get the actual steel mini coaster from RollerCoaster Tycoon 1 instead of RCT2's junior coaster, and the steel mini coaster doesn't have a pre-build with a queue line. However, any official release version of OpenRCT2 is allowed to be used for these speedruns, so Sparky just used an older version where you still got the junior coaster. This is ridiculously fast, but we can still go faster, and we don't even have to use OpenRCT2 RCT2 for that. This is Six Flags Magic Mountain. It's a very big park with the goal of getting 700,000 park value and paying back your loan. You actually start out with more than 800,000 park value, but it's gonna take a while to make enough money to pay back the 50,000 euro loan. You could sell some rides, but then you won't have enough park value anymore, so that's not an option. Or is it? If you sell Flashback and Goliath, you will be left with about 720,000 park value and enough money to pay back the loan. And this is exactly what world record holder, here he comes again, ZG's, does. After selling the 2 coasters, he pays back the loan as quickly as possible and finishes doing so after 7.94 seconds. This is very fast and the fastest anyone has ever beaten a scenario in RollerCoaster Tycoon 1 or 2. A few seconds later he actually beat the scenario according to the game. In scenarios like this that don't have a deadline, the game checks for the goal at the start of every day, and ZG's took just 1 day to beat this scenario. March has 31 days, so a day is 13.21 seconds long, making this the fastest possible time to properly beat a scenario in RollerCoaster Tycoon 1 or 2. But of course we can go faster with OpenRCT2. First we return to Diamond Heights. Because OpenRCT2 is based on RollerCoaster Tycoon 2, a goal of 20,000 park value wouldn't make any sense, so it automatically adjusts the park value goals of RCT1 scenarios, and here we need 200,000. Sparky L has the OpenRCT2 world record for every scenario in the base game of RollerCoaster Tycoon 1, so naturally also the one for Diamond Heights. You can still see the old records for Diamond Heights and Dinky Park in vanilla, as the ones discussed in this video happened very recently and haven't been verified yet. Anyway, the fast forward Diamond Heights record goes like this. It took them less than 6 seconds. First they increased their loan to 15,000 and then they used that money to build 2 pre-built looping coasters, Turbine and Stingray, before opening them and hitting fast forward. 5.8 seconds is very fast, but we can go faster once more, and of course that's done in the Six Flags Magic Mountain scenario. This record belongs to a runner called Lord Marcel. Hey, that's me. And it's lightning fast. Did you catch that? Let's watch it again in slow motion. First I press the hotkeys F and T to open up the finances and rides menus, and because I made the game window smaller, my mouse is already aligned with the button that allows you to instantly sell rides. I click on that button and then I click on Flashback and Goliath to sell them, before moving my mouse to the finances window to pay back the loan. OpenRCT2 allows you to scroll to increase or decrease the loan, which is a lot quicker than clicking on the plus and minus buttons. On top of that, I have a mouse with an option to remove all resistance from the scroll wheel, allowing for super fast scrolling. Just before I finish paying back the loan, I increase the game speed to the maximum. This is crucial as the game only checks whether you've beaten the scenario once per day, so the end of day 1 has to come as soon after I've paid back the loan as possible. With all these tricks I beat the scenario in just 1.56 seconds, which is the fastest anyone has ever beaten a scenario in OpenRCT2. Well, any human, that is. We know the theoretical limit for the vanilla games to properly beat a scenario is 13.21 seconds, as that's the length of a day in March. But what about OpenRCT2? Sparky L did a tool-assisted speedrun, or TAS, of Six Flags Magic Mountain and got it down to 0.93 seconds. It's the same strategy, but just done inhumanly quickly. That's not the theoretical limit though, as you can't start speeding up the game immediately, and with a park this big there's also a bit of lag at times 128 speed. To achieve the minimum I created this scenario with the goal of getting 1000 park value and paying back your loan, which is already achieved when you open it. All you have to do is speed up the game as quickly as possible, so I have a script running that continuously presses my hotkey for increasing the game speed. When I open the scenario it takes just 12 frames of this 60 frames per second video to beat it, which is a time of 0.2 seconds. Maybe it's possible to somehow increase the speed quicker, but this is definitely very close to the theoretical limit. And there you have it, from 47 minutes to beat Empty Airfield to just 0.2 seconds to beat a custom scenario in OpenRCT2. The fastest RollerCoaster Tycoon 1 scenario is Diamond Heights with 27.4 seconds. The fastest RCT2 scenario is Six Flags Magic Mountain with 7.94 seconds. And in OpenRCT2 you can do the same scenario in just 1.56 seconds. These records will probably be beaten sometime in the future, but for now they stand like this. To see how I beat RollerCoaster Tycoon 1 without building any path, click right here. Thank you all for watching and I will see you in the next video.